Betway is one of the most trusted voices in sports betting in both Canada and around the world. And Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront. It's simple, it's fun, and it's a safe way to play, always with Betway. With the largest selection of betting options in sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Head over to Betway and bet your way. You got to be 19 years or older to play, and please play responsibly. How did the Leafs do? Mark Giordano, Colin Blackwell, Ilya Lyubushkin. I include in that too.
I agree.
Okay. You get two pretty solid defensemen. Lyubushkin's come in and done a great job. He's done exactly what he was built to do. Nothing on offense. Kind of a Gandalf. You shall not pass on defense.
Yep.
He is what they told me Martin Marincin was for years, but never was.
Martin Marincin, but understands how his size.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. He moves people.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Giordano, not as much to offer on the offensive side anymore, but defensively, he's still very strong. And also, let's be honest, any offensive numbers you look at from Mark Giordano have to be viewed under the lens of he played for Seattle and they suck, and they're worse than the Coyotes this year. They are actually worse than the Coyotes.
Yep. No, I'm just so glad Brody and Giordano, two Toronto boys, getting to live their dream playing for the Leafs.
And playing with each other.
Yeah.
And Colin Blackwell, who's an energy left winger, which they needed. You would think that he was going to be brought in to be like depth, maybe third, fourth line. Yeah. But I think
play center.
I think they give him a shot on Tavares and Nylander's line.
I agree.
Now, how do you feel about the trade deadline? How did you guys feel about walking away from that as a Leafs fan?
They didn't. I mean, okay, they still have Matthew Nyes. That was my number one fear, is they would trade him. They still have their first-round pick. There was a tweet out there from Nick Alberga about, like, I don't understand the reluctance for the Leafs or the Oilers to spend their first-round pick if you're in a win-now mode. And I understand that thinking. I just don't think there was a deal out there that made sense.
Who are you going to get?
Exactly.
You're going to get Mark. We'll talk about the trade that didn't happen, but it's Marc-Andre Fleury.
Right. So there was that, and that would have been interesting. But they didn't spend ginormously, and they're a better team. So they didn't give up any of their most important assets. They didn't give up any of the prospects they've cleverly drafted and developed, and they got better. Is that not the perfect scenario?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't get anything for free. So isn't this great?
Especially at the trade deadline where you're overpaying.
Especially at the trade deadline. I think they did a great job.
Jesse?
Yeah, the issues to fix were on the defense and in goal, and maybe you get a depth piece in forward. They got 2 out of the 3, and the goalie situation, there was no goalie out there to get. So how can you ask, if you're asking Dubas to go get a goalie, he tried to for signing the European free agent. But
Hari Sateri, I don't think was going to solve the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at the goaltending situation, you're okay with what you have with going forward. You're okay with Shalgren and Mrazek and Campbell. It's okay. And then Giordano and Blackwell, they're good pieces to add. And that's all you want because the offense is fine. This team can score at will at any moment, it seems like, this entire year. And then, the depth on defense, when you add Giordano, he's still 2 years removed from a Norris Trophy. He's still a good player. He's still very talented, and he's repaired with Brody. It's going to be fun.
Latest from Elliot Friedman on Dodonov, and you're listening to this. You probably already know these answers, but somehow in a trade call from Ottawa to Vegas, a team Dodonov could not block. Obviously, Vegas was not on the no trade. The Golden Knights in the NHL were led to believe protection had expired / not been filed properly. But there was correspondence proving no trade paperwork filed correctly and on time June 30th. He said, so we'll wait and see how this is adjudicated.
So the
Sender,
Golden Knights are accusing the Sens of screwing them.
Yeah. This will be interesting. Still, it's sloppy. You should still check. If the correspondence and paperwork was with NHL Registry, which it would have to have been, you could have called.
That's fascinating. I'm interested. Like, how do you punish whom?
Yeah, well, we'll see. Probably nobody gets punished. Now,
I don't think so.
I got to talk about this. With the Leafs. What I like with Giordano especially, Lyubushkin already gave them some of this. Muzzin is out, right? Mm-hmm. You needed left side help. You got a guy who's experienced, a guy who's done it with the Flames, a guy who's led, good person, wants to play here. That's important in Toronto. It
might resign.
Might resign at a reasonable deal. What Mark Giordano and Lyubushkin give you are flexibility. You know, Jake Muzzin's out, and I don't know if Jake Muzzin's ever going to be, and I say this honestly, I don't think anybody quite knows. I know he's skating. Is he going to be healthy enough to play hockey again at a level that's acceptable in the NHL? It's not that he can't put on skates. My question is, can he grind day to day? And if he can, you know that by the playoffs, and I know that by the playoffs, Jake Muzzin isn't going to be 100% healthy. You know that.
No.
So, what do? Well, you got Riley, who's had a great year.
Mm-hmm.
You got Giordano.
Mm-hmm.
And if Muzzin is healthy enough and good enough, you shelter him on the third pair. He's still a bastard to play against.
Mm-hmm.
He's still a guy that the Leafs absolutely love. He's going to go to war for you, but you don't have to play him 22 minutes a night.
And this pushes down one of Hall, Liljegren, or Sandin.
Sandin's going to be out for a while, they said.
Yeah.
Out indefinitely.
But when he's healthy, there's one roster spot for those three. Riley's in, Lyubushkin's in. Brody's in, Giordano's in. Muzzin's in. And then what? It's Sandin on the right, or Liljegren, or Hall.
I think we have to rule out Sandin. Like, I don't think we should be planning for Sandin to be back.
They said out indefinitely. They said a long
Well,
time.
I didn't. It was when they announced his injury yesterday. I was like, really?
Yeah.
When? When did this happen? So, okay, fine. Then you're looking at Riley Lyubushkin, Giordano Brody, and then probably Muzzin
Liljegren. And I would give it to Liljegren because I think he's earned it.
Yeah, that's a really tough call. It's a tough call. But either way, it's better that any of those guys, instead of playing out of their depth, are on the third pair.
Think about it like this. When the Leafs played Columbus and when the Leafs played Montreal last year, their shutdown pair was Hall Muzzin. Now, those guys are probably the third pair.
Yeah.
That's a marked improvement. And so, listen, I'm not a head in the clouds Leaf fan here. I have my worries, goaltending chief among them. I don't think there was a deal to be made with goaltending. And I think I haven't minded Lyubushkin Riley at all.
No.
I'm curious about Brody and Giordano reuniting. I think that'll be interesting.
I think it's sort of like a top pair by committee. It's just
Sure.
a really solid top four and a dependable, well, I say a dependable third pair when we don't even know who's going to play on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the third pair is going to be an experiment. I haven't seen the line rushes from today, or I guess the Leafs don't play till tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I wouldn't be totally shocked to see like Kiwi Halmy and Duzak potentially play.
Don't you give him a try? What about Mac Hollowell?
Yeah, well, I don't know about Kiwi Halmy because he friggin' almost hurt Spezza yesterday, so I'm upset.
Okay.
At practice, but no, yeah, I think they're gonna try, guys.
Now,
you got 20 games left. There's a 20-game practice till game one of the playoffs. Like, that's the rest of the season here, because the East is entirely solved, the top 8, and it's just where they're all going to slot in. Who cares if the Leafs fall back a little? I want to see Keefe for the next 20 games just try out everything he's got. Like, all of these extra forwards. If Simmons doesn't crack the lineup anymore, if you want to try Spezza a little up in the lineup or out of the lineup, I want to see it. If Blackwell makes it to the second line, I want to see that. And I want to see all these defense pairings. Like, we got 20 games here to try out everything, and whatever works the best, that's what you go with game one of the playoffs. And hopefully the goalie situation is also solved by then.
It's a paper improvement to me because last year they were good. They needed depth, so they went out and got it. This year they're good, and the extras in the lineup are guys they already have.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to say about the first round pick, so let's talk about the deals. We're talking about the deals that happened. Let's talk about the deals that didn't happen. When it comes to the first round pick, I understand I understand where Nick Alberga was going there with Edmonton and Toronto specifically having goaltender issues. You know, Edmonton didn't have any money to spend, and that's their own fault. And they had goaltending issues, and they didn't solve them last summer. We knew that. Jack Campbell, falling off a cliff after the beginning of the season, nobody really was going to foresee that, right? Like, we were talking about him like he should be in contention for the Olympic team. He was that good.
The Olympic team, the Vezina,
like
all
he
of
was
it.
amazing.
I forgot about that.
And so listen, mid-season, not a lot of goalies move, and there wasn't a thing out there to be bought. My question for everybody that's like, why do they still have their first round pick? Well, first off, they traded it 3 or 4 years so far, so that's part of it.
That's a lot.
The fact that they even have high caliber talent in the system the way they do is amazing. What do you want? What do you really want? Like, let me ask you, like, what do you really want that you think a first round pick would get you?
You need a right-handed defender, ideally right-handed, who's going to be not just good but great this year and going forward.
Does a first round pick get you that?
No, it would have to be first and
Nyes or Abruzzese or
because remember, Leaf fans, your first round pick is a piece of shit. Like most teams don't want it. It's
yeah,
like 25th.
It's
right?
it's almost a second, right?
Yeah. Ideally, it's 32nd.
That would be great.
But it's like, even if they go out in the first round, it's going to be in like the 20s.
Yep.
Like the mid 20s. That sucks. It's if you look at the draft pick value charts, like the first 15 picks, like that's a different breed. But after that, there's a sharp drop off, and by the time you get to the mid 20s, forget about it. It might as well be a second.
There's no conceivable difference. They said between 20 and 40 or 45 in terms of like
it's negligible
over the course of 10 years when they did these sorts of studies, right?
Yeah.
Obviously everybody was talking about the Fleury Hagel for Nyes, either first rounder or multiple first rounders, and Mrazek's contract. That was the reported contract. Now we don't know whether a lot of people are out there assuming that Fleury was asked to waive his no trade and said no. To be honest with you, I haven't read that anywhere. That just floated around on Twitter, and I think somebody made that up.
No, because people are dumb. Like people are like, oh, okay. Hari Sateri was a lot of people's Stanley Cup yesterday.
We'll talk about that.
No, because it was funny.
It was funny.
But it's funny to say Fleury said no to Toronto. He literally didn't.
Yeah.
I saw people responding to the Darren Dreger tweet that says in it, in plain English, it didn't get as far as Fleury being asked to waive his no trade. And people are like, this guy said no to Toronto! Ah! No, you just can't read.
Yeah, Dreger made sure to include that information. This was a leak of negotiations, which Kyle Dubas had I don't know if we're going to get
We'll get to that too.
But Kyle Dubas had a big problem with that. But it was just, they were talking, him and Davidson, and I don't know how it got out, but Dreger decided to tweet it, and this was the cost. And I don't blame Dubas for not paying that.
Well, think about here's what Tampa paid, okay? And you just said the first round picks aren't as great.
Tampa's are a hunk of shit.
Yeah, they are. So the Blackhawks got Boris Kachuk and Taylor Radish. First round pick in 2023, 2024 as well. Both are top 10 protected. And
Smart.
For Hagel. So they got 2 first rounders and 2 players. And Radish is a roster player.
For Chicago.
Especially in Chicago.
Didn't he have a goal? Or one of them had a point in their Chicago debut?
Sure.
Yeah.
And good for them. Somebody's got to score for Chicago. But Hagel is one of those guys that on Tampa, he's like their next Blake Coleman, right? He's the guy, and he's under team control for the next 2 years at $1.5 million, which Tampa desperately needs. We know that, right?
Yep.
So
great deal.
And he scores, he's on track to score some goals and that sort of thing. But Fleury and Hagel, so Fleury's on an expiring contract. No guarantee he resigns. No guarantee the Leafs can afford to resign him. Mm-hmm. Then you got Hagel and you got Matthew Nyes. Now, Matthew Nyes played for the American Olympic team. Matthew Nyes is a very good player. He's probably the top prospect coming out of the NCAA.
19.
And I can guarantee you the reason that Dubas was pissed about that Davidson thing is not about the Marc-Andre Fleury stuff. It's he's trying to sign Matt Nyes to play for the Leafs after the college hockey season is done.
This season.
Right now.
They have 2 spots, right? So you can have 50 players signed. They have 2 spots. And they have their eyes on Matthew Nyes and Nick Abruzzese, both of whom might play for the Leafs this year. Both of whom were on the American Olympic team.
I think that deal, if the Leafs did it and it was only a first rounder, I think it's a good deal. I think Matthew Nyes comes back and bites you. I do.
Yeah, he's really good.
But you do drop Mrazek's boat anchor contract.
That's pretty
and you
good.
do get Hagel for the next 2 years.
A part of me says, I don't care if Matthew Nyes is a 20-time All-Star if you win 2 rounds. If you win one round.
Boy, that's where we're at.
Yeah, you do.
You know?
Yeah, you're talking about it like, okay, I get where that feeling comes from. Mm-hmm. That's dumb. Like, I understand where we're all of us, Leafs
we're
Nation.
Dumb.
Water. Like, we need a playoff round win. I'm desperate for a playoff round win. But most teams that give up a top prospect and don't win the Stanley Cup, we go, look at that. Look at those bunch of idiots.
I think
that would be us.
I think the bar is a little different for the Leafs. I think you need to.
That's wrong.
I think you need to regroup your expectations for this team. If they win 2 rounds, they're in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh.
I'm not thinking about Matthew Nyes for many years.
But
if Marc-Andre Fleury leads the Leafs to the Eastern Conference Finals, you do not give a shit about Matthew Nyes.
It's a battle between your head and your heart. Your heart You're okay. It's a battle between your head and your heart, and they're both right. Your heart's right
Mm-hmm.
in this scenario, and your head's right.